Alice, first to you. A couple of senators, Lindsey Graham and some Democrats as well, have introduced a sense of the Senate resolution, which makes all sorts of different suggestions about the U.S. Senate's view of Saudi Arabia. Is something like this
start? I mean, it's a start. Clearly, we ought to be not backing Saudi Arabia. We ought not to be selling them deadly weapons. We ought not to be supporting their vicious and anti-human military adventures. But, yeah, it's a start. And it begins with acknowledging that clearly the Crown Prince played a huge role in this horrific case. We've got to start by acknowledging those facts.
Ken Del Vecchio, do you acknowledge those facts?
Of course I don't acknowledge those facts, and I don't know how Ellis could acknowledge those facts. We don't have any of the evidence. The government, in the most internal sectors of the government, has the evidence. What does that mean? It means the CIA, the Defense Department, I guess the U.S. Senate has been briefed on it. They've got the evidence. And clearly we're seeing something where experts disagree. We're seeing something with people who have all the evidence are coming to different conclusions. That's why you have juries.
But you got Lindsey Graham, a Republican. You've got Senator Bob Corker, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. They say the evidence is overwhelming. So why not take their word for it?
I can't take their word for it because I don't know what the evidence is. If I were sitting on a jury and a U.S. senator got up on the witness stand and said, I'm telling you that they're guilty, but they don't tell us what any of the evidence is, that's meaningless to me. And it should be meaningless to everybody in America. You know, there's something called innocent until proven guilty. And even though the Crown Prince is not a U.S. citizen and this is something that happened in Saudi Arabia, we still should give that presumption. We don't know what is happening here, and it's very simple. I'm not saying that Lindsey Graham is inaccurate. I'm not saying that Bob Corker is inaccurate, but I'm also not prepared to say that Mattis is inaccurate. We simply don't know, and we should sit back and wait until we see what the actual evidence is. And that goes for Ellis, too.
Alice?
David, there's none so blind as he who will not see, right? I mean, listen, who are we supposed to believe? We have the Central Intelligence Agency, right, which is the key organization that provides this information for us. They have gathered it with the assistance of their helpers around the world. They say that with the highest of confidence, they believe that the Crown Prince is behind this thing, intimately involved, communicating with the plotters. Literally, while they are committing the crime, they have delivered this message both to the White House and to the Congress. Donald Trump doesn't want to believe it because of why? Because of potential business relationships with the Saudis, because of some notion about their allegiance to us and its purported value. All of which any reasonable person on the other side who's willing to look at it with an open mind realizes is a bunch of bunk and time to give it up.
Ken?
I'm looking at it from a complete open mind, and I simply don't know what the evidence is, and neither do you. You're just repeating talking points from certain people. You could just as well parakeet the talking points from Mattis. We really don't know what happened here. This is a very simple case right now. It's a simple case of let's wait and see what the evidence is. And if the Crown Prince, thus the government of Saudi Arabia, was involved in killing an American, then it's time to initiate sanctions. But until we know that definitively, we shouldn't do anything rash. And the president's maneuvers on this are the correct maneuvers.
Alice, what about the argument that, look, even if the evidence is overwhelming, even if the Crown Prince had, you know, the bloody glove that matched his hand,
which he almost does,
or the bone saw, whatever you want to call it, there's still the argument that the Trump defenders are making that, look, despite all of that, Saudi Arabia is still too valuable to the United States on too many issues to allow the relationship to come off the rails because of just this.
Well, David,
I mean, it's an honest argument, right?
It has honesty on its side. It is a bloody and immoral argument that goes against really what we stand for in the most at our core as Americans, what we are in the world, who we are as a people, what our nation reflects around the world. I guess it would be better than this sophistry that we're getting now, which is this double talk like we're hearing from our friends here.
Are we getting sophistry from, I mean, history? You're looking at 15...
But it would be superior, David, it would be superior to that. But I don't think it's who we are as Americans. I think we're better than to sign on with butchers.
It's improper. It's improper for you and wholly unjust to be ready to drop the guillotine on somebody when you have no idea what you're talking about. You are not in receipt of any evidence. You're just listening to a few politicians.
Here's my disagreement with both of you. Here's my disagreement with both of you. The United States has been, I think, coddling Saudi Arabia for a long time, all the way back to 9/11, when most of the hijackers were Saudis, and the United States cleared an airplane for them to get out of the United States. So I'm not so sure this is so different. It's just a different administration. But in any case, Ellis Hennick and Kendall Vecchio will continue to cover this. Thank you both for coming on. We appreciate it. Still to come, the forgotten music of the Holocaust.